What is no longer worth it because of how expensive it has become? Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the Vancher channel. Also, please share your thoughts on this video in the comments. Let's get started. Story 1. All fast food. Used to be you could at least rationalize it as a cheap treat, but now it's just as expensive as higher-end, fresh ingredient places with the same garbage quality and smaller portions. Story 2. Kind of feels like society has failed when the answers are all basic necessities. Food, clothes, a place to sleep. Story 3. Thrifting has become crazy expensive. All of the thrift stores I used to go to have increased prices. On top of that, garage sales are crazy. My favorite is pulling up to garage sales and see the owners have just printed out random listing from eBay. No, Bob, I am not going to pay $100 for a microwave from 2010 because it sold for that on eBay 5 years ago. Edit. I think someone pointed out there is a Reddit for all of our unbridled rage. Our thrift grift. Answer. Garage sale is supposed to be stuff you don't need, so you're selling dirt cheap instead of throwing away or donating. I ask right off the bat what a price on something is, and if the price is obvious, they are trying to make their money back, I leave. It's not selling on eBay for 20, it's listed on eBay for 20, but the ones selling are going for 10 after fees. You're probably walking with 8, and that's if you do sell, and then you have to package up and ship and also take the time to list. It's work, and you're most likely just going to end up storing shoot you don't need in space you don't have. They need to learn the difference between retail store, secondhand store, and garage sale. Story 4. It's wild how many of these answers are food-related. That's so scary to me. Past a certain point, what do people eat? Even instant noodles have gone way up. Answer. Instant noodles have gone way up, and now there is a new ultra shoot and cheap category of instant noodles. I accidentally grabbed a 12-pack because it looked like chicken maruchan, and I didn't notice till I got home, and it was fudge up like half-size bricks with a flavor packet that was pretty much yellow food dye and salt. It was also some super generic packaging with no information on it. I felt like I eating black market noodles. Story 5. Ordering delivery used to be same price as ordering in person with a small fee and tip per item. Now most places have signed with a service, so they no longer do it themselves, and now you have to go through DoorDash or Uber Eats, etc., which add on additional fees, increase prices from menu price, and larger tips expected for what in most cases amounts to worse service than back when restaurant or pizza joint did their own delivery. Answer. DoorDash is shady AF. They add restaurants without their consent, have bots that crawl the internet looking for online menus, then set their own prices without telling the consumer that the price was not set by the business. People think that the business is screwing them, but it's really DoorDash raking them over the coals. My friend's family's small business had to get both DoorDash and Uber Eats to remove them multiple times because they just kept re-adding without their consent. Story 6. Boxed cereal. A box of Cheerios for $7? Get the fudge out of here with that nonsense. I'll buy the store brand for $2 that comes in a bag instead of a box, at least until that gets too expensive as well. I need to figure out something else to eat for breakfast that's not boxed cereal. Edit. Thanks for all the kind suggestions. I'll be sure to give some of them a try. I've cut eggs out of my diet in an attempt to get my cholesterol under control. Oats, oatmeal, etc. are an excellent suggestion, but they are a texture disaster to me. No matter how good they taste, I can't get past the gritty wallpaper paste texture. Oatmeal, grits, polenta, anything with similar texture is right out. Answer. This. Also, the family size boxes are not the same family size they used to be. Family size is the same size as the normal size like 5 years ago. Years ago, I remember my parents saying not to get the family size because we'll never eat the whole thing before they get stale. The normal size now is good for 2 bowls of cereal, yet the price is nearly tripled what they used to be. Cereal is the biggest joke going. Story 7. I honestly don't know how to survive anymore. Everything is getting more and more expensive, yet no one is getting a raise. Something has to give. Answer. I feel that so deeply. I'm getting deeper into debt every week just keeping gas in the car and food in the house for my family. It's over $1,000 a month just for that. I end up with less than $200 a paycheck for any extras. I'm starting to seriously drown and considering cutting out retirement savings just to have a little extra now. And 4 things just lit up on my dashboard as needing service. Guess I'm getting a second job soon. Story 8. Farmers markets. Everything was like 14 what it cost at the store, grown closer, and by smaller local farms. Then everything changed when it became trendy. Now it's more expensive than stores, and I question if it's even from local farms and not Costco. Story 9. Foot-long sweet onion teriyaki from Subway, and normal drink was $14 at Subway yesterday in Miami. I'm done with them forever. Story 10. Pizza. King 22. Average for a large cheese is insanity. Pizza is incredibly cheap to make, and 2-3 per topping for a small sprinkling. Making pizza dough is the easiest thing at home. Tons of great recipes online for sauces, cheese, oven. Story 11. Junk food. 6 for a bag of Lay's? I'll eat some darn baby carrots and hummus for less. Can't remember the last time I had a Coke either. Story 12. Concerts. I went to hundreds of concerts in my teens, 20s, and early 30s. The most I ever spent on a ticket until recently was $150 to go to Woodstock 99. I tried to get nosebleeds for Elton John's farewell tour last year, and it was $250 to get in the building. Live music is one of the greatest pleasures known to man, and Ticketmaster. Live Nation ruined it. They own the distribution, management, venues, event planning, etc. It's a vertical integration monopoly. Story 13. Airbnb. All of the add-on fees usually drive the cost higher than an actual hotel stay in the same area. Answer: my family and I went to San Francisco a couple years ago, thinking we'd save money by booking an Airbnb. Turned out those rentals all cost the same or more than a decent hotel in the city. We ended up staying at a hotel for a few nights, then staying at a bed and bath in Half Moon Bay for a good cost. Plus, we weren't expected to clean anything or whatever else these Airbnb hosts think is acceptable to make their guests do. Edit: bed and breakfast. Story 14. Buying a new car. Even the crap entry-level models with no options will run you near $30K. Who the hell is buying a $70K Ford F-150? Story 15. Brisket used to be really cheap because it has lots of sinew and connective tissue. Takes a long time cooking to break down and make tender. Now BBQ has taken off. Brisket has shot up in price. Answer: my mom used to have a cookbook from the 80s, something like Poor People's Guide to Cooking, and it specifically talked about how you can get deals on brisket because it was throwaway or scraps at most butchers, and if you have the patience, you can make it edible. So I grew up with it because I was poor, and now at some point our 2-day brisket recipe is like gourmet. Reminds me of what apparently happened to lobster, except it happened in my lifetime. Story 16. Streaming services were back at cable like again. Haven't worn a pirate's hat in many years, but I can smell the salty air. Story 17. Junk food. 6 a bag for Oreos. Pass. 5 for 7 ounces of chips. That's not even a whole potato. It's time to break up the 10 megacores that control 95 of what we eat, what lines our store shelves. Story 18. Health insurance. We pay about $12,000 a year in premiums and also have an HSA that we contribute about $8,000 a year to. We have a deductible of like $10,000 that we have to hit for the insurance to pick up most of the costs. So in a bad year, we are out at least $20,000 for medical insurance. We have 2 kids and are pretty healthy, but seem to hit this every year now. Answer: I canceled health insurance for this exact reason. Paying $8,000 a year just in premiums, then co-pays, then deductible. I just pay cash for the few times a year we go. So much cheaper. With insurance, my copay for a visit was $50. Just took my kid in and cash pay was $120 with prescription. But I save $600 a month. Worth it to just not have any at this point. Catastrophic instances being the outlier. Story 19. It breaks my heart to say this as a Brit, but going out to bars and pubs. I am 35 with kids, so don't go out as much these days, but I went out in Manchester last week, and each beer was costing me $6. It's no surprise pubs are closing, and people are drinking more at home. At this rate, we're going to end up like the Scandinavian countries who drink at home till midnight, and then hit the clubs when they're already pissed and don't need to buy more than 1 or 2 drinks. Answer: the big problem here is the cost of rent has gone up dramatically. No matter what business it is, landlords always win. And due to Federal Reserve funny money causing the price of buildings to skyrocket, and so they have to charge a ton more in rent to pay the mortgage, which means now every single business has to focus on the bottom line, which in shitting service and quality of life everywhere. Story 20. Airbnb is now just as expensive as a hotel with several more downsides. You usually have to complete a list of chores before you leave, and when you arrive, someone walks through the property with you and goes through a list of rules so restrictive it shouldn't be on the platform in the first place. Staying in a hotel is so much more carefree, and depending on the type of trip, much more convenient. Story 21. Amazon Prime. It used to be the go-to for everything. Free 2-day shipping and good quality products for cheap. Now it's just shoot Chinese products with Prime increasing their annual fees. Honestly, just not worth it anymore. Story 22. Very specific, but drumsticks. Early 2000s, you could get a name brand pair for $7-ish. Now many brands are $19. Story 23. This is going to sound weird, but store brand butter. Inflation hit and Kroger ramped up the price for its generic brand, but by doing so made it cost $2 less than Land O'Lakes. Pre-inflation, a $3 thing of Kroger butt looked more reasonable than the $5.50, or we for lol. Now it's like I use less butt anyway. Might as well spend the extra couple bucks to directly support dairy farmers. Story 24. Rent is the big one. Renting should be a decent deal for people who don't need or want to own a home yet. It's a fine deal as long as it's reasonably priced. But if it's eating 50 of your income, then it's just a financial burden that prevents you from saving and takes away the hope of owning a home. I have no issue with renting housing conceptually, but the way it's ended up, it just sucks for the most part. It's gotten genuinely unethical. Story 25. Starbucks. Ridiculous nowadays, especially in Canada. I bought an espresso machine and learned how to make their drinks. I prefer my versions more too, and never looked back. Story 26. Streaming services as a whole, like Netflix, Disney, Hulu, even my Spotify went up in price, and it's frankly tiring with these services. Definitely dropping my Netflix and Hulu, though, for a VPN so I can finally sail the seas and use Plex for my media. Story 27. Movie theaters. Pay $30 without snacks and possibly $60 with snacks, or wait 4 months till it's in Redbox and watch it for $2.50. Story 28. Cars for many people. Although that question is relative because there are always people with more money than others. Answer: I leased my current car weeks before quarantine started in 2020. My residual value was $16,000. At the end of my lease, the KBB estimated trade value for the car was $24,000. The bank that held my lease denied me a loan on good credit with perfect auto payment history, and I'm convinced it's because they knew the car would sell for far more than the amount they were contractually obligated to sell it to me for. I had to get a loan from a different bank to buy it out. Story 29. Children. The cost of living is so high and the job market is so volatile that I wish I didn't have kids because the stress is insane. I lost my job yesterday because I work in the games industry and it is genuinely bleak and terrifying. I love my kids, but living in the UK is awful right now. Answer: a relevant Kurzgesagt just came out that goes over population decline and cost of children is absolutely an issue. More people are putting off children until later in life or indefinitely, in part due to the fact that it's just not sustainable for any quality of life. This is going to really fudge over economies in the next few decades as the middle-aged generation wants to retire and there's no one to replace them. As an aside, even beyond the video, we're already starting to see this in several professions here in the US. Story 30. I have a subscription for oxygen. It's annoying. I try to breathe during off-peak, but sometimes I have lapses. Story 31. Literally everything. The greedflation is out of control. People are too stupid, and every market is completely insane. It makes me want to just check out of this garbage, psychopathic society. Story 32. Six Flags and most theme parks in general. I refuse to pay an extra $200 to skip the line or $80 so I can park 20 feet closer to the entrance. Want to get harassed by a bunch of teenagers in costumes? That'll be an extra $65. Non-refundable. Story 33. My husband and I are dual income. No kids. We make a comfortable salary and spend pretty freely. If you would have told me 2 years ago I would be passing by simple grocery products because of the price, I would have been shocked. I was at the store yesterday and saw new Haagen-Dazs ice cream cones I wanted to try. $8.99 for a pack of 4. Just can't do it. Story 34. IKEA. The prices have gotten to the point where I can just spend a bit more and get real furniture. $600 for a shoot particle board dining table that will be destroyed the first time water spills on it. I might as well drop another $200 and buy one made from real wood. $1,000 for a sofa full of shoot fiber fill that will sag within 2 weeks. Or I can spend a bit more for a top quality flex steel. Story 35. Going out to eat. I just make all of my own food now. I look up recipes of the dishes I used to get at my favorite restaurants, and I learn how to make them at home, except for sushi. I just don't eat sushi anymore. It's definitely less expensive, although the cost of food is still higher than it should be. We're definitely living in the silent depression, and it's due to corporate greed. Story 36. Travel. Hotels before COVID were bad, but they weren't awful. Now it's $300 a night to go to some basic courtyards in Canada. It's cheaper to sleep in your car now. I actually missed travel during COVID when hotels were under $100 for really nice rooms, even if you couldn't get the whole package like pools, gyms, and restituents. Story 37. Streaming services, they were awesome when it was just $10 to get pretty much any content you'd want. But now you need 10 subscriptions for 10 to 20 each month. Story 38. Going for a drive through the hills of Northern California. Used to love doing it to clear my mind out of boredom. Not when gas is 6. Story 39. Eating out anywhere. Food delivery services, buying a house in most U.S. markets, air travel, most streaming subscriptions. Story 40. Car insurance. Shame it's illegal to cancel it. After the Florida hurricane, my insurance in Texas went from 100 to 265. No accidents or tickets. Story 41. Living in an A-list city in the U.S. like New York or Boston or San Francisco, on a salary versus cost of living calculus, it just plain fails. Story 42. Taking your car to a mechanic. I understand they got to make a living too, but darn, I just have to watch YouTube videos and read forums to fix my truck when things go wrong. Story 43. Most rock concerts. How are you motherfuckers doing tonight? I can't hear you. Literally every concert. Story 44. Cereal. I switched to oatmeal. It's cheaper, more filling. I've noticed positive changes since eating it every morning. Also fast food. I hardly go out to eat anymore. Too expensive, I can prepare similar meals at home for a quarter of the cost per meal. Story 45. Name it. Liquor, decent food, decent clothes, gas, traveling, furniture, television, streaming or cable, rent, dental care. Like fudge, I used to go out once in a while. Meet friends for a few beers or dinner at a new restaurant a few times a month. Travel every other year. Nothing crazy. I'm talking fly domestically to visit family on the other side of the country. Now I go to work, go home, and go to bed. I'm living like a senior citizen waiting for passing, and I'm in my 30s. I'm working longer and harder than ever, and also making more than ever. And those earnings have been completely outstripped by the rising cost of gestures to everything. Story 46. At this point, food. I'm no criminal, but it's getting to the point where I often wonder, if I just walk out the store with a full grocery cart, is anyone really going to stop me? When food becomes too expensive, stealing it becomes a moral obligation. Making food so expensive that it's unaffordable is the real immoral and criminal part of it. Answer. I do self-checkout to avoid having to talk to people. And though I'm an honest person, I can't deny that I seriously consider forgetting to scan an item or two. A bag of chips is around $5 where I live, and that's for the small sizes. Same with condiments, and cereal, and everything else. I used to get whole chicken for about $7. Now I see them over $15 and usually closer to $20 than that. It's insane. Story 47. Controversial take, college. The return on investment, at least for me, just never seemed worth it. Even when I tried it 12 years ago, the time, the debt, the long-term impact, you have this degree forever for this specific thing. All of that seems like more baggage than not having any of it. The thing I went to school for? I got a job before finishing my courses, disliked the industry, then dropped it all entirely, got a cubicle job, and run a business on the side for extra cash. The things I'm interested in, creative pursuits, mostly, just seem like terrible majors. And the things that are worth it don't even help you anymore. I see all these people with degrees, long resumes, and they apply for 100 jobs and get no replies. My brother is like this. He is way more qualified than me in every regard, and he struggles to find and keep work. Meanwhile, I have held down a really solid desk job for a good while and enjoy the lifestyle I have. If I have to go back and learn anything, it's going to be a trade. Answer. It really depends what you go for. All through primary and secondary school, teachers stress to us that post-secondary education is only good if you pick the right career path. We had to do research on job markets in high school to determine if our paths were worth it to go to college or university. We'd calculate cost of schooling to potential income and would work out how long it would take to pay off the debt if we needed to take out loans for it. They always stressed that we'd better be okay with poor financial compensation if we didn't pursue something that was high-paying. Story 48. I paid over $10 for a Big Mac the other night. Not the meal, just the sandwich. That was my last Big Mac. Story 49. Eating out at a restaurant. It's not even a treat anymore. It's just waste of money and calories. The exorbitant pricing, the low quality, poorly prepared food, mediocre service, and the expectation of gratuity for doing nothing but plop some glasses of water on the table and write down your order. On top of the miscellaneous bullshit fees that are starting to appear on more bills. It's dumb and I don't want to play the game anymore. Story 50. Life, a not tragic end, BTW. People like to report this to Reddit. But legit, if you're not making $300K a year or more in the US, you aren't getting a piece of the American dream. Pie, you're living like a serf. Story 51. Eating out. I make good money, but I feel like I'm getting ripped off when it costs $18 for a marginal burger. I can make it home. I used to enjoy eating out, but rarely do anymore. With tax and tip, the joy gets sucked out of it. Story 52. Subway has almost quadrupled in price the past 10 years, and the food quality has dropped a disgusting amount. Story 53. Making your own clothes. On the one hand, fast fashion sucks. On the other hand, I can buy a whole jerk garment for cheaper than the material needed to make my own equivalent. Not to mention getting quality fabric these days is a proper nightmare on top of it being expensive AF. Yeah, I am in the process of mending horrible quality H&M jeans that only lasted a year. Because finding jeans that fit me at all is a multi-day ordeal. I'm not skilled enough to make my own, and just the fabric alone costs almost as much as store-bought on sale. Why do you ask? Story 54. Thrift stores. Once I started finding dollar store stuff there for $4.99, I just stopped going to them. Clothes are cheaper at Walmart. Story 55. 1. Higher education. Rising tuition fees with questionable ROI. 2. Real estate. Sky-high prices in major cities. 3. Cars. Increased costs, especially for electric models. 4. Streaming more expensive than cable was. 5. Healthcare. High costs in non-universal healthcare countries. 6. Weddings. Soaring average expenses. 7. Concerts. Sporting events. Steep ticket prices. 8. Travel. Rising flight and accommodation costs. 9. Branded fashion. Increasingly unaffordable luxury items. 10. Eating out. Costlier than ever, especially in trendy areas. Story 56. Dining out when it's not a special occasion. Going to the movies costs people's inability to stay off their phone for 2 hours. Bowling is crazy expensive now. Story 57. Sadly, my daily can of Dr. Pepper. They used to be 3 12-packs for $11. Then they went up to 13, then 15. Last time I checked, they were 3.18. Fudge that noise. I liked having that one little bit of consistent joy in my life, but I'm not paying $18.20 a week for Dr. Pepper. I was only having one a day, but so was everyone else in the house. Story 58. The unwanted cow parts. Oxtail, beef ligament, tendon, tongue. Used to be super cheap, and my mom made banger dishes out of them. Now they've shot up exorbitantly in price. I can see people are eating oxtails quite often now, but I don't know why tendons and tongues have gotten so pricey. Story 59. Hair services. Cuts starting at $80. Highlights starting at $250. I should have gone to esthetician school rather than university. Story 60. McDonald's. They were the place where the poor wee-o man could go to get a burger. Nowadays, it's so fudge expensive. Not just that, McDonald's also participates in shrinkflation. The beef patty on your Big Mac is smaller and thinner, to the point where even the pickles are thicker. Absolutely disgraceful. I'm never eating there again. Story 61. Local newspaper subscriptions. I know it's a dying industry. Most of them have had to lay off staff and charge more to try and stay afloat, and the product has suffered. My dad canceled his subscription a couple years ago, and I was looking into getting him one, but the price was way higher than I was expecting. Even for the online-only version, it was $160 a year. I understand the why, and I don't have an answer for it, but still surprised they're asking that much for the online publication. Story 62. Everyone in this thread mentioning normal everyday activities. The real cause is late-stage capitalism. Wealth is being sucked out of the lower and middle class and making the rich obscenely rich. Stagnant wages, shareholder-driven business practices, and privatization of every industry. Story 63. Almost any restaurant. After paying $30 just to get frozen vegetables, which I don't even use when I cook at home, with my steak almost every time, I just decided to not go to restaurants anymore, or at least any restaurants I haven't eaten at before. Story 64. Life. Let's be honest here. Life itself has become totally unreasonable for most people in the developed world. Rent or mortgage costs are driving folks into the streets to live. Food costs are unreasonable to insane. Insure everything. Costs. Buy gas to get around with? Costs. If I could just snap my fingers and bring it all back into line with reality, I sure would. Story 65. Chicken wings. Around $2 a piece at most places. Not so long ago, they were like 50C each, and some places would do 25C wing nights. Story 66. Telling my parents I'm going to move out soon. Sorry, Mom and Dad. It looks like I'm with you for a little while longer. Story 67. Food. Prices doubled. Quality decreased. Cooking at home costs as much as ordering, but with worse taste than before. To fix this, gougers must either reduce prices or I must triple my earnings. 13 to catch up, 13 to keep up. History shows I must quadruple my earnings or face homelessness. Story 68. YouTube TV. It used to be a great alternative to cable. Now it's more expensive than cable ever was, lower quality video, and no basic features of DVR like FFRW. Story 69. Movie streaming services. It was fine for a while when it was just Netflix, but now it's so split up that it's not worth it to keep looking up who has what movie. On top of that, we have those services ruining movie series shows by canceling, delisting them when they're no longer bringing in enough money. Story 70. Uber Airbnb. Originally designed to be cheaper than taxis and hotels, the prices now are actually ridiculous. Story 71. Literally any fast food place. The money I have to spend on fast food, I can eat better at a restaurant. Story 72. Chip crisps. The other day I saw normal size bags on sale for 2 for $8. What the fudge kind of sale is that? Story 73. Thrift stores. I am an avid thrift shopper, and while I've seen prices steadily increase over the last 5 years, it has hit an all-time high. I used to see items that still have the original tags on them with a price cheaper than the current thrift store tag randomly. Now I see at the very least 5 every time I shop. I'm sorry, but I refuse to spend $24.99 on a pair of used Levi's. Story 74. Skiing. Living in Colorado, Vail has taken over everything, and the cost to go for a single day, lift tickets, food, rentals, etc., is insane. Not to mention the time to get up there during weekends, if you can't go during weekdays, is just insane. It used to be fun and enjoyable. Now it's just long lines and otherworldly expense. Story 75. Fast food. I can go to Taco Bell, or I can go to my favorite sit-down or delivery Mexican place in town. I probably pay less at the nice place, and the food is orders of magnitude better. Fast food is only if you am on the go and want a quick bite. Story 76. Food. More seriously, eating out. No way in hell I'm spending $27 for a green chili cheeseburger at the local bar. Add a marg, and we're up to $50 with tip. Story 77. McDonald's. Honestly, they think I go there because the food is nice. I go there because it's nice for the price. Story 78. The local Mexican restaurant in my city. Went there for years because the food was always amazing. You got large portions, the frozen margaritas were to die for, and the family of owners are great. All of the above still applies, but for 2 apps and 2 margaritas a piece for my wife and I, it now costs $90 when it used to be $40-$50. A medium frozen margarita is $20 a piece now. The extra large, which they don't even offer anymore, was $18 3 years ago. What I don't understand is there's still a few restaurants in my area where you can get the same for around $60 still. Story 79. I live in Southern California where we have a lot of those night markets. At first, they were cool getting to try a lot of street food. I'm fine standing in line to get food for 20-30 minutes. However, last time I went, you couldn't buy anything for less than 20. Now, standing in line for half an hour for an overpriced street food is not even worth it anymore. Story 80. Thrifting. I used to go to thrift stores because I was poor and couldn't afford clothes. Now they're just expensive garage yard sales. Story 81. Any sporting event or a concert, it's just not the tickets, but the parking or Uber plus the cost of food, drinks, etc. Even the nosebleed seats will cost $150. And now you add those other costs on top, you're looking at $250 or $300 on an experience. Sucks, but it'll take a pass and rather watch it from the couch. Story 82. This might seem a little highbrow, but let me explain. My family growing up was firmly middle class, maybe even a little upper middle class. We grew in a HCOL area. While we never struggled, but I wouldn't say we were rich by any means. We grew up in the Northeast, and in the winters we would frequently go upstate to go skiing, snowboarding, and do general winter things in the mountains. Once a season we would have a vacation for an extended weekend, but many other weekend we would do day trip or maybe even rent a house with family friends for a night. Having now grown up, and my wife and I feel like we are both certainly more well off than when we were younger, but there is no possible way we could do multiple ski trips for a family of 4. Having done the math, one family trip even on a non-holiday weekend would be a significant chunk of change. With the cost of cab-ass lodging, equipment and rentals, lift tickets, WTF, man, etc., is undoable. We did a trip pre-kids and it was insane in price, and the overcrowding just made it not worth it. So yeah, ski, snowboarding, winter mountain things are out of scope for us now. Story 83. Drive-through food, local festivals. I took a staycation this past week with a friend. It was cheaper to go into a sit-down with a server restaurant than the fast food joints and festivals and haunted house were like $30-$40 to enter. Story 84. For a lot of people, college. If you're planning to work in a lucrative field that requires specialized knowledge, it's worth it. If you're getting lots of scholarships, it's worth it. If you're not getting scholarships and you don't really know what you want to do with your life, it's not worth spending tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to discover yourself or to major in some niche field that you find interesting but doesn't offer any job opportunities. Story 85. Going to the movies. Tickets are $20 and popcorn, and drinks are $10 each where I live. I'd rather wait 6 weeks for the movie to come out on streaming services, find the friend with the biggest TV, and get together at their house for less, $5 a person, even if we have to pay to rent the film. Story 86. Buying a house, but that's kind of the plan. Have a country full of renters, it seems, is the game plan. Story 87. Eating out. After working food service and seeing how much we waste, I will not be paying that much to eat out. Story 88. Fast food. It's becoming normal for work crews to carry grills around and one man be on KP duty. Fast food just isn't worth it anymore. And even if I break down and get something, it's just plain disappointing. Story 89. Chicken wings used to be cheap as hell because they were mostly bone and skin, but they were fantastic to cook up with sauces. Now places sell them for like $8 for 4 wings. I don't care how good your sauce is, no sauce is worth that. Even the supermarkets are charging more for what was a pretty scrappy cut-off meat, but now it's seen as popular cuisine. Don't even get me started on Korean fried chicken. Story 90. Junk food, soda, and fast food. 7 for chips? Nah. 7 for a 12-pack? Nah. 40 for 2 combos and some tacos at Jack in the Box? Nah. Story 91. Fast food. The whole point of McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, etc. is it's fast and cheap. Nowadays, you wait 20 minutes to spend 20 on just yourself. Story 92. McDonald's. Hell, it wasn't even worth it before. McDonald's being cheap was nearly the whole appeal. Now it's just expensive, inconsistent, and mostly bad food. Story 93. McDonald's. Went like a month ago and got a Big Mac meal and a DBL QTR Peter meal, 34. It's just regular restaurant prices now. Story 94. Chips. A $7 bag of air with a few broken chips in it is not equal to almost an hour of minimum wage. We thankfully don't make minimum wage, but as I was typing, the similarity in price occurred to me, and it is kind of gross. Story 95. Fast food. I used to treat myself to a fast food lunch every Friday when I made way less money than I do now. Now I just can't justify it. Story 96. I can't afford to go to concerts anymore. I feel like any decent shows cost $150 after fees. I remember going to amazing shows for $25 to $50. Can't do that anymore. Story 97. Comic books. I love comic books, but they are just darn too expensive. For example, a typical new issue ranges from $3.99 to $4.99 US, which would take about 15 minutes to read. This multiplied by the Australia tax means it costs apex 5 to 6 US per issue. It doesn't seem like a lot, but if you buy multiple books every month, it adds up quickly and it's easier to just go cold turkey. Story 98. McDonald's and other fast food. For the prices they're charging, you might as well eat at a proper restaurant or get higher quality takeout. Story 99. I had to cancel my kid's surgery due to an infection, and the answering service absolutely, despite their best efforts, could not get the message through for 72 hours. Our surgeon was pissed at us. Why couldn't anyone fudge get the message? Story 100. All junk food. Netflix, a house. I own a small farm. The buttheads down the road have 75 acres and an old farmhouse, and they're asking $500K. Insane. Their farm was valued at $300K in 2018. Realtors are pimps at best. Somewhere between car salespeople and meth cookers. Order of dirtbags, bad to worst. Car salesmen, anyone in healthcare management. Lawyers, pimps, realtors, meth cookers, any bureaucrat, intimacy traffickers, child rapists, politicians, either party, red, blue, they all suck. Story 101. Beverages at restaurants. It is water every time. No, I won't pay $5 for a Coke Zero. No, I won't pay $15 for a mocktail, which is fudge juice, and it is basically the same price as the adult beverage age version. It's a mixer, Kathy. Calm down. And of course, we will be blamed when millennials eliminate restaurant beverages. No, you're greedy jerk. Eliminate them when you decided to charge a $900 markup for soda water and syrup. And don't get me started on coffee shops. No more. I got a Vietnamese iced coffee to spoil myself, coffee which is beans and water, and some condensed milk in it, 9 with tip. Then it was 4 sips because it was packed with ice. The next time I ordered no ice, so they gave me a half-full cup of coffee. Fudge off, it's stupid. I don't want to live on this planet anymore. When is the next pandemic? Story 102. I make close to 200K, and I have to watch what I spend money on. 2 years ago, I was making 90K, could comfortably pay my mortgage, eat out, not deny myself of frivolous little things, and still have savings and investment contributions. If I made 200K back then, I wouldn't even know what to do with it all. My expenses are maybe 1,500 more a month. It doesn't add up. That means everything has gotten more expensive. Story 103. Buying a home. Then once you buy it, you never actually own it because the mortgage legally makes it the bank's, which they can still take at any time, and property taxes. Also, purchasing dealership vehicles. Same reasons. Story 104. Going to the doctor. I have dry skin, but recently I got some bad psoriasis on my jerk. It was annoying, but I went to the doctor, got a steroid shot and some cream. It helped a ton. Then I got a $150 bill for the shot. I have insurance, so I'm just not going to go to the doctor unless I'm actually in pain. Story 105. Food delivery. Used to be like 1 to Grubhub, 5 to the driver, then get the food. Now it's like 5, 10 to Grubhub, then tip and upcharge food. Once I'm nearly 20 into fees, I just make it at home. Story 106. Taco Bell. I could feed a family of 6 with 24 in 2019. Now me and my wife eat about 40 worth. We have it once every few months, so we treat ourselves to be full versus fed. Story 107. Alaskan king crab legs at Costco. I used to grab 2 for less than 20 and they were 50 last I checked a while ago. Story 108. Specialty food delivered. We used to get this great artisan cold brew delivered once a month. 45 ain't worth it in these trying times. Story 109. Eating out. Everything isn't prepared well. Serves are part tablet, now on the way to being fully automated, but conveyor. Most items at a family restaurant can now be had in convenience items at the grocery without the addition of odd preservatives. Sam's has pre-made chicken, pork, and steak items from Chinese to Mexican to Italian to Americana that have very limited ingredients and may only require you to get a side. Story 110. The food truck used to be bomb jerk food for super cheap because people didn't want to eat food made in a truck, but now it's the trend and the prices have skyrocketed. Story 111. Phones for $1,200 for the high-end ones. You can buy a cheap car, pay rent, groceries for a couple months. And for what? To take pictures too better than a $500 model that nobody can tell the difference between anyways? Story 112. Disneyland, low MFAO ticket, food and parking. I don't have 1,000 to drop in one day. That and buying a house. Story 113. Road trips, like driving to a vacation destination. I used to drive for 14 hours-ish to my favorite city a few times a year, but last time I went, it was over 500 as gas. I'd rather just stay home at that price. Story 114. Going out for lunch, brown bagging it now, regular pedicures, Netflix. I just get one streaming service, apart from Prime, and I subscribe for a year. Usually there is a discount. Then I switch to another one after the year is done. This way I can watch the shows from different streaming services, and when I go back to Netflix, HBO, or Disney, after a year or two, there will be a large amount of content I have not seen yet. Story 115. Making your own clothes. Even cheap fabric from Walmart costs more than a t-shirt. Or knitting a sweater. It costs 10 for a ball of cheap yarn, and you need 7 to make a sweater. Story 116. Seriously, just everything. From food to concerts to housing to clothes. My money doesn't go as far as it used to for anything anymore. Looking at my budget this year to previous years is shocking to say the least. Worst part is wages aren't keeping up with inflation, or rather price gouging. Story 117. Nail polish at drugstores used to be $2. Now it's $10. I barely buy any new colors anymore and just stick with my favorites. Story 118. Decent dining out. It is no longer my income bracket. We used to eat out frequently, but it is no longer feasible as a lifestyle. And on top of the outrageous costs, I'm still expected to tip 20. I don't see how this is a workable business model. It can't sustain itself. Just like in every other inflationary cycle, the prices will go up. The inflation will come down, as it always has, but the prices will never come down. I'm old enough to remember the coffee and sugar shortages of the 70s and 80s. Those things never became inexpensive again. Now, Starbucks wants me to pay nearly $7 for a latte? Fudge that noise. I wonder if people just stop buying all the unnecessary crap that we buy if we couldn't affect some market corrections all on our own. Story 119. Store-bought packets of Chips Crisps. Better for my health to not eat them anyway, but their price is just absurd now. Story 120. Sit-down restaurants. I can make much better and cheaper food at home, and I don't have to endure children wailing or screaming. Story 121. I'm kinda sad to say, but getting my nails done professionally, I used to go every 2 weeks, add in a pedicure every other time. Now I'm doing my own feet and keeping my hands short and natural. I miss it sometimes, but seriously, it was just getting too expensive. Story 122. Home heating oil. It's 5x more expensive now than when I bought my house. I was about to install a new oil furnace when I decided to say F that and go for a semi-central system that has both heat and AC. The electric cost, which at one time would have far outweighed heating oil, is now the more economical choice. Filling my oil tank used to cost me $300. Now it would be about $400. Story 123. Everything requires a tip, so now I don't tip unless I sit down at a restaurant or another service that traditionally had them. I felt like I was so mean when I don't tip, but I don't care anymore. Tipping culture needs to end. Story 124. Fast food restaurants. A value meal at McDonald's costs the same as going to most small, family-owned restaurants. To top it off, McDonald's isn't any faster, and the food is much better at small restaurants. Story 125. Like many others, DoorDash Uber Eats used to be a whenever I wanted thing, and I'd order 2-3 times a week. Now I never use them, and some places have lost touch so hard, I'd never eat there again, even if prices drop significantly. Looking at you, Panera, with your $15 chicken sandwich. What I do differently now is I just wait till things are on sale and then buy bulk. My grocery store, 80's NY strips were $6.7 before. Now they're $14.15, but they almost never sell, so they go on sale for $6.7 again fairly fast. Story 126. Food delivery. Even with a subscription, the fees and tip ends up costing more than the meal itself. I can't think of any other service I've bought where the convenience fee was more than the product. Story 127. Cereal, 8 a box. Orange juice, 4 or 5. I can go without. And so many other certain grocery store items. I haven't bought certain things like this in months because of the insane prices. Story 128. Food trucks. More expensive than sit-down restaurants and much smaller portions. Hard pass sans taco trucks. Story 129. Going out, rent, groceries. About to ask why my parents never reconsidered aborting me because I did not agree to pay so much to just exist. Story 130. Buying property. Unless you're a mega millionaire, it's impossible. And the newer generations will not be able to buy a house as they only keep increasing. Story 131. Concert tickets. My wife was going to get me Willie tickets for my birthday until she realized it was going to cost us $380 for nosebleed tickets. She was still willing to do it, but was wise enough to drop a hint my way, which I immediately noped out of that idea. In 1978, I watched Bob Welch, Little River Band, Steve Miller, and Fleetwood Mac all for a whopping $15, which translates into $70 in today's dollars, which is a $400 price increase, which if you calculate backwards, $300 interestingly converts to $64 in 1978 dollars. Imagine paying that little for a spot on 100 feet from the stage to see Stevie Nicks' husky voice wash over your 18-year-old soul for a measly day's pay. Story 132. For all of those complaining about the prices, elections have consequences. Now that you're aware, inform the next generation so maybe we can skip this shoot the next time. Story 133. Most ad-free streaming services. I just end up getting the ad-supported tier use ad blockers on it. Pretty much the same experience as ad-free. Story 134. New mobile phones. The price on them are disgusting for what they are, and the fact they bring them out every year and say, this is the best one yet. I am 4 generations back and won't be changing anytime soon. Story 135. I used to go to the gun range with my dad and uncle because I had an uncommon caliber revolver, 41 Magnum. It was about $2 every time I pulled the trigger. Story 136. Buying concert tickets. If there's a show you really want to go to and don't want to spend $1,000 for obstructed seats, here's a tip. Go to the venue when the show starts. Hop on StubHub and get dirt cheap unsold tickets. Let's not all do this now. Story 137. Movies. I just watch it on my phone after a couple of weeks. Also, I kind of don't like people that much. Story 138. Boba tea because I don't drink Starbucks, but I consider them both dessert-type drinks. A regular size can run $5, $7, and then extra if you want different toppings. I just make them at home now. Story 139. Delivery pizza. I enjoy delivery pizza. I used to work at a Domino's head office, and yes, you did get free pizza and sides routinely as part of the perks of the job, but it's far too much of an indulgence these days. Actually, delivery food of most kinds just isn't cost effective, but I think the pizza issue is the one that hits me hardest of all. Story 140. Retirement. I just turned 40 and am worried my husband and I will never be able to retire even after we cash out. Story 141. Finding more stupid, annoying things like, can anyone explain why some Vicks VapoRub was almost 15? Story 142. Fabric. When my daughter was little, I sewed clothes for her myself. Now, fabric is so expensive that it's just cheaper to buy the clothes already made. Story 143. Fast food. It's literally cheaper to go to my local burger joint and get a burger than it is to go to Wendy's, and the burger is outrageously better. Plus, they have beer. Story 144. My current gripe is that clothing has gone way, way downhill. I am willing to spend more money on some clothing that's good quality that will last me a long time. But I am seeing things at places like Nordstrom, J. Crew, Ann Taylor, Anthropologie, Banana Republic, and stores like it. Things are priced $100, $200, $300, and I can tell they will not survive more than 2-3 wears. These places didn't used to let me down, but the quality has gotten so poor. I'm not even trying to be funny when I say that a lot of the stuff you see at Nordstrom now should be sold at Target for $20, $30. I am literally finding things at thrift stores in places like TJ Maxx that are better quality. Answer, what has happened to Banana Republic? I hadn't shopped there in like 5 years and recently looked again, and they have lost their darn minds. It was always more expensive than Gap, but was still affordable and sold mostly normal clothes with a few special or out there pieces. Now it is crazy high prices in clothes I guess you wear to parties. I got so many clothes from BR over the years, and now they have obviously changed their target customer because it sure isn't me anymore. Story 145. Candy bars 69 cents. I'll grab one from time to time. Full-grown adult. 2. 69? Lol, what? That's like actual money for a candy bar. How are they still in business? Story 146. Second-hand clothing stores. Some of the things in there I can buy for same price, if not less, for brand new. Story 147. My son's college tuition was 10 times what mine cost. I have a grandson coming up in a few years. Will it be 100 times more than mine? Answer, this one is a big one for me. My dad went to a state university for aeronautical engineering back in the 80s for $700 per semester. I went to a different but similarly ranked state university for mechanical engineering between $20,142,019 and paid $7,800 per semester. Inflation since this is only 108, yet university prices are up over 1,000. Am I my kid going to have to pay $80 per semester for that same state university engineering degree? Story 148. Frozen dinners. The entire appeal of the product was that you could buy a meal for $2-3. Now that they are 10, you might as well just buy actual food for dinner. Edit. I would have never dreamed that this would be my most upvoted comment of all time. LeMao. Story 149. Everything. Even the free shoot feels expensive with how many ads are being thrown at us from all angles. Answer, I just read an article that the freight industry is concerned about a recession developing because they aren't seeing growth. One article even complained that prices were moving back in line with historical projections. Yeah, because the ridiculous inflation of the pandemic is now dying down. But you somehow thought that was just going to be the new baseline? Especially since logistics was one of the most cited reasons for increased pandemic pricing. Are all of these companies somehow unable to recognize the concept of a temporary boom? It really brings home how many companies are trying to do exactly that. How a brief price hike due to logistics issues in the face of the pandemic quickly became, we're going to gouge you forever. How the public isn't responding well when we need this to stay afloat transitioned into reporting record profits rather than breaking even or small losses. Just the fundamental idiocy of constant growth as a mentality rather than accepting that you have up years and down years and hopefully eventually reach a point of profitable equilibrium. Story 150. Replacing the windows for your house. Obviously, if you need to replace one, you need to replace one. But there was once a time where replacing your windows for the energy savings over 15 years increase in potential resale price was well worth it. Now, you're looking at 20, 30 for what? 20 a month savings in energy usage? In a market where there could be a body in the basement, which the potential buyer would let you leave so long as they got the house? Story 151. This may be a bit weird, I still buy it, but not as much as I used to, gum. I used to buy 2 packs for $2.50, now it's almost $4.50 for 1 pack. Story 152. You think wages would have gone up with all this extra cash? Nope, corporate greed. It's all at the tippity top. Story 153. Does anybody have friends at the Bureau of Labor Statistics? They need to be dialed into these comments to get an update on CPI. Story 154. Flank steak for a carne asada barbecue. It used to be really inexpensive, and you could feed a lot of people if you had a party or a get-together. I remember it being $2.99 a pound. I've seen it as high as $15.99 a pound. No, thank you. Answer. Bruh, they've caught on to the chicken thighs. The fudge chicken thigh. Geez. 2020, buck a pound, 3 pounds in a pack. 1 pound of it is skin and bone. Takes time to dress. No problem. Let's make a deal. 2023, $3 a pound. It's tripled in price. You'll get the fudge breasts of they're on sale instead, gouging me on cheap cuts of meat that I have to dress and clean myself. I'm ready to start burning it all down. Story 155. Soda. I could buy a 12-pack for $2.53. Zero back then. Now they're 12. Like fudge that shoot. I switched to drinking coffee mixed with chocolate milk now cause of it. Story 156. A house, and I'm lucky enough to be a homeowner. Housing prices are out of fudge control. Our house has increased over $200K in value since we bought it 6 years ago. That's almost double what we paid for it in 6 years. We couldn't afford to buy our house today. I'm glad that our house has turned out to be such a sound investment, but we didn't buy it to be an investment. We bought it to be our home. Other people deserve homes too. I don't want to live in a society where two hardworking people can't afford a modest home of their own. Story 157. Funyuns, those were my jam. We spent many a good time together. $49 for a 6-O's bag, though, is criminal. I could get almost 2 gallons of refined dead dinosaur juice for that price. Story 158. I think the problem isn't that prices are going up, though. Yes, that is a problem. The real problem is that middle-class incomes haven't kept up with inflation for 40 years, and there is nothing left for people to scrimp on. Answer. This is 10,000 true. I am supposed middle class. I am going in the red $200, $300 a month. I looked at my finances and there's literally nothing left to skimp on. I pay $45 for prepaid internet. My phone bill is luckily $55. I don't pay for cable. I don't pay for streaming services. Where's my money going? I legitimately made a budget and my money is going to my $500 food bill for one person, heat for a small apartment, now over $350 in the winter, and a car payment that's over $300, as well as the $2,700 insurance for the year. What am I supposed to do? Eat like a pauper and freeze to passing? Edit. Oh yeah, and rent. That's out of control too. Story 159. Restaurants. Recently went out to eat for the first time in a year and spent $100 for 2 and it wasn't very good. Felt guilty spending almost a day's pay on one meal. Story 160. Food delivery services like Uber Eats. I literally pay 2x the amount if I get my food delivered versus opting for a pickup. It makes no sense to pay extra amount on each item taxes, service charges, tips to the drivers. Fudge that, I'd rather go pick up the food myself. Story 161. Everything. For last centuries all over the world, we've optimized every working hour of an employee, squeezed him to its maximal capacity, so shareholders would get better returns, and that left us with salaries which do not correspond to the current reality. Story 162. Grapes, I saw they were on sale, and at the till they were 10 for a bag of grapes. I said to the cashier, please take them back. I can't justify a half hour of work for a bag of freaking grapes. Story 163. Anything that is pre-sliced, portion cut. It is like 8 for cut-up cantaloupe where I live. I can get 3 cantaloupes and just cut them up in 5 minutes for the same price. Anything done for convenience in that way is out in our house. Story 164. It's this world, man. As I tell my friends, every CT wants your money ever since people started doing subscriptions. Like back in the day, you got Office 13 for cheap, and that was you sorted for years. Now you're paying monthly or some shoot forever. Streaming, razors, ficking underwear, meal kits. Man, like every few weeks, some chief tries to sell me on meal kits. Motherfucker, why do I want just the right amount of paprika? I've got a whole jar of that stuff. Oh, it shows you new recipes? Guess what else does? The internet. And when you cook at home, you'll have leftovers or even batches for days. Hello Fresh? Hello Twat more like. From scammers, advertisers, banks, service providers, supermarkets. Everyone wants more of your cash. Cash you worked for. I've got to get up and go to work through rush hour traffic, and now I can't even buy a chocolate bar that's for normal-sized people because you've shrunk that shoot down but are still charging me the same or more for it. Story 165. We need to stop consuming. I know that leads to downsizing and lost jobs, but at some point we have to push back against these shareholders who continue to bleed the middle class dry. I get wanting to make money, but when is enough enough? Story 166. Subscriptions: Netflix, Prime, Disney, Hulu, Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora. To a point, I cancels them all, and I pirate that shoot now. Plus, they find it okay to have commercials on top of an already high plan. Story 167. It may surprise some, but for me, it's cheese. Manchego, Swiss, sharp aged cheddar, Parmesan, Brie, Gorgonzola, smoked Gouda, and cream cheese pass my lips in name only. I formerly had a casual affair with cheese. We got together a couple of times a month, and we were happy with our easy arrangement. Now I have dreams about my lost love. The breakup is purely financial. Story 168. I ordered a McFish meal a few days ago, and it was nearly 12, image spending close to 50 for a family of 4 at MC Donald's. Story 169. Beef of any cut. It was going up pre-COVID, but the pandemic has basically doubled it. You can't even find cheap ground beef anymore. I literally started buying shrimp more because it's basically the same cost now, so why not? Story 170. Pizza delivery. For a large pizza, breadsticks, and a 2-liter of soda, you are looking at 45 once fees and the tip are included. I remember being able to get all that for under 20. Story 171. Disney. We just got back. I'm still pissed that kids' chicken tenders and fries was $29.95. I was expecting the ticket prices to be steep, the genie passes to be expensive, and to pay through the nose to stay on property. But holy shoot, 30 for 3, chicken tenders and some fries. Story 172. They're now asking 10 for my sandwich at Subway. Just veggies, no cheese, no sauce, no meat. My husband eats meat, so his are 16. Remember 5-foot longs? Story 173. New vehicles. Besides, you can't buy them completely stripped down in the U.S. anymore. I want purely mechanical base models to come back. Looks like we are moving towards a computer that drives itself and can't be repaired easily or inexpensively. There is no end to greed and stupidity. Story 174. When I lived in Los Angeles, a family bag of Doritos ranged from $5.56, unreal. I wrote them a letter, yeah, so what if I had a couple of beers? And they sent me a coupon for a free bag of Doritos, up to a 5 value. Wouldn't even cover the cost for a new bag. Story 175. There's something telling when the entirety of responses is effectively food, entertainment, and housing more or less in that order. Story 176. Going out to dinner. My fiance and I have just learned to cook because we kept spending $100 on meh food. We go out less frequently, but only to really nice places where it's worth it, usually. Story 177. New cars and used cars. 35 grand for a base model Corolla. 75 grand for an phone 150. Who the fudge is buying these things? Story 178. IKEA furniture. IKEA particle board junk is now the same price as real furniture made from real wood. Not only that, but there has also been a noticeable decline in quality, greedflation, and enshittification all in one. Story 179. Haircuts at the chain shops like Gray at Clips. I bought a clipper set and now cut my kids' hair myself. Story 180. Chicken wings. They used to be so cheap, and I used to go out for them all the time. Now I just make them at home. I shouldn't be paying $15 for 6-8 wings. Not worth the money, and then you get them, and they are overcooked, or the sauce is weak. Bleh. Story 181. Any tip service. My nearest Jimmy John's auto-suggest screen when you pay starts at a 20 suggested tip. Then list higher tips. 22 or more for Jimmy John's. There is not an option to not tip either. So you have to hit custom tip and then enter 0 to decline to tip them for spending 11 seconds making your sandwich with mayo when you told them no mayo. Story 182. Not a specific thing, but a place. Vegas. The food, drinks, and hotel all got so expensive that it's just not worth it anymore. Story 183. Movies at the theater. That ship has sailed for my family. Major movies now are at home within a few months, even faster if they don't light up the box office. I chose to invest in a kick-jerk home theater, and I have 0 regrets. Story 184. Haircuts. It doesn't feel like so long ago haircuts were under 15. Now my closest barber is 40 before tip. I figured out how to cut my own hair in COVID and have kept it going because these prices are wild. Story 185. Cigarettes. It has made quitting the darn thing so much easier though. So actually not such a bad thing. Story 186. Yes to the eating out. I have a family of 5 and it's over 100 if we go out to eat. with the exception of going to Mexican, which is fine with me because it's delicious and a local small business. I got a 15 order of fajitas last week and got 3 meals out of it. But normally the food is just meh out at restaurants and I can make it better myself. Not to mention the service usually isn't so great. Story 187. DoorDash, Uber Eats, et al. Unbelievable how expensive these services are now. Chicken sandwich, curly fries at Jack in the Box, 25 before tip. What? Story 188. Lyft tickets, $150 per person if you don't ski more than 5 times a year to make the Icon or Epic Pass worth it. That's after gas, food, lodging, etc. Story 189. Hulu, paying for Hulu with no ads. Most things have ads regardless. Getting close to $100 a month. That was the reason I got rid of cable and satellite. Now here we are. Story 190. Any personal beauty services, nails, hair color, lashes, eyebrows, all that I now do myself. Only thing I still do is get my hair cut, and I go to Great Clips now. Story 191. Certain meals at restaurants. I used to order the most amazing steak frites from a local restaurant to go, and the price went from 30 to 50. It's such a shame because as much as I love it, I just won't pay that much for one steak and french fries. Story 192. College degrees, overpriced pieces of paper that plunge you into a debt abyss only to emerge underemployed. Better invest in practical skills and stop lining the pockets of institutions profiting off outdated prestige. Answer. Retired university admin here. Allow me to say it's a bit more complicated, and at the same time you illustrate the point. It used to be that going to college was primarily for education. Think 19th century. Over time, students became more focused on using a college degree as leverage for a job. In my last job, part of my responsibility was to grill professors and department heads, making them prove that students got what they paid for. When students complete this degree, what will they know and know how to do? And what is your methodology to prove it? Faculty and staff really do want students to get bang for their bucks. Please believe me, there are hundreds, thousands of professors and admins out there falling all over themselves to do everything possible to make sure students get a quality experience at university. AMA. Story 193. Cable television. Was paying $150 for cable and not including internet. Cut the cord and got Roku instead. Story 194. Sporting events. All of them are so expensive, even for dusty jerk seats. I'll enjoy it from my comfortable home with any food and beer I choose. Answer. I went to a ball game last summer, paid for the fancy seats that a decade ago had a server who would come around and bring you food drinks from the menu, maybe some friendly banter. Now it's a QR code that forces you to download the MLB app that wants to know everything about you, including your credit card information, so you can order a 30 beer and have some beaten-down person deliver it to your seat. Also, the park is cash-free, cards only. Also, no admission without a phone and electronic tickets. Printed them out, fudge off. Also, they demand ID for admission and scan that too. Last game I ever attend. I want to see baseball and have a beer, not get data mined and blasted with ads the rest of my life. Story 195. Newspaper. It's all white space and ads now. Used to enjoy spending a day reading the weekend edition. Now what made it, the weekend edition is gone. Story 196. Paper towels, 2 rolls of Bounty at the store, $10.99, 4 rolls of store brand, $9.99. Store brand, of course, is rolled looser, so it's all the same. Story 197. McDonald's, it's not that great of food, but it was cheap. Now it's expensive, and you might as well pay a couple bucks more and get something decent. Story 198. I live in Alaska and used to be into recreational shooting gun building, but ammunition is so ridiculously expensive that I couldn't bring myself to keep it up. I even tried getting into reloading my own ammunition, but it just took so much time that it wasn't worth it. That, and they bulldozed all the gravel pits I used to shoot at, so I have no choice but to deal with FUDs and Gestapo RSOs in the overpriced gun ranges. Story 199. College. Seriously, if your parents have a $250K college fund for you, instead of going to school, invest that money, then go do manual labor for 15 or 20 years, and then retire off that initial investment. Story 200. Top-end consumer graphic cards, specifically RTX 4090. You can probably build a whole PC with the price of the card alone. Maybe it is still worth it for some professional who can utilize it and can make ROI in a short time, but for most gamers, you are better off spending elsewhere. Story 201. Feels like everything is too expensive at this point. I'm not buying anything except for the bare essentials now. The rest goes to rent. Story 202. Vinyl records. A new release can run like 70 in Australia. Fudge that noise. I've started buying CDs again for my physical media fix. One each at the thrift store and sometimes free. That's it for this video. Don't forget to support Vancher and my second channel, Vanchus. See you soon.